Gather up here. Hello and welcome to the Flying W Ranch. I'm Josh Hoy. This is my daughter Josie and my wife Gwen. This is my father Jim and my mother Kathy over here. And we're really glad you're here, and we're really glad we have the good weather. It's just exactly the way we ordered the day, so worked out. But we're going to talk to you a little bit here, and then in just a little while, after we've heard from some educational stuff here, not too painful of educational stuff, we're going to walk down here, kind of follow this road where they're riding, and we're going to go across the creek and burn just a little patch for the day burn, just kind of get everybody a taste of it and know what's going to happen. And then we'll come back, we'll have some supper, go have steak and taters and corn and slaw and homemade ice cream and s'mores, so all kinds of stuff. But we'll have supper, Tallgrass Express will play and entertain you a little bit, and then once it starts getting kind of dark, we're going to head up this hill, and you see the burn patch up there on the hill there. We're going to go light that up. We'll just kind of spread out along the burn patch, and we'll start lighting up the pasture, and we'll let it creep around.
And it is going to be gorgeous. The area we're lighting up is real hilly, so it'll crawl up and down the hills, and very pretty. So, yep.
And then when we get done with that, or when people start coming back from that, we'll come back down. Tallgrass Express will play some more, and we're going to have a fireworks display. Wow. So we should have fireworks with fire behind it. That's the plan. We'll see. We'll see if that gets orchestrated or not, but it should.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Why don't you tell them a little bit about the ranch?
Okay. You're here on the Flying W Ranch. We're a working cattle ranch with, guest ranch too. We started doing this event. Jan Jansen, he's going to talk to you a little bit later. He started this event, I don't know how many years ago now, but we helped him some with that. He did it for years, and we helped him a little bit, and then he kind of decided to retire from it, so we took it over. It's been we really enjoy it. It's a really fun event.
My name's Jan Jansen, and welcome to the Flying W Ranch. It's truly an honor to welcome you in the name of our host and hostess, the Hoys, Gwen and Josh, and his family. Welcome to the amazing Flint Hills of Kansas. I saw some horseback riding going on. Not that, but down here. How many of you went horseback riding today? A lot of you. Great. And it's not that hard. You kind of pull back on the reins and the horse stops, and you kind of nudge it a little bit with your feet and it goes. But not all horses are that way. In fact, some distant relatives of Josh Hoy, way back in the sort of pioneer days out here, they settled this area, and this young man and woman were living out here in the hills, totally undeveloped, and they were so poor they didn't even own a horse. And the wife was pregnant, the day was coming, all of a sudden it's time. The young man just panics and starts running to town fast as he can go. Unfortunately, he ran into a preacher riding his horse down the little trail. "Oh, preacher, please let me have your horse. I'll borrow it, I'll give it back. My wife's pregnant, I got to get to town to get the doctor." "Oh, sure, no problem, no problem." But he said, "Now, to make this horse go, you got to say, 'Holy mackerel.' And to make him stop, you say, 'Amen.'" Guy says, "No problem," hops on, and away he goes. And this is a good running horse. And he realizes that straight between him and town is this great big old cliff, big old drop off, way, way down to a river. And so he starts saying, "Whoa, whoa." Well, that horse just doesn't have any whoa at all. "Whoa, whoa." And he said, "Man, I'm going to go over that cliff, me and the horse, and that's going to be the end of it." And he has nothing to do. He drops the reins, folds his hands, and says, "Oh, dear God, make this horse stop, and I'll be your faithful servant forever. Amen." And the horse stops with his nose hanging over the edge of the cliff. The horse is puffing. The young man is puffing. Tips back his hat, wipes his brow and says, "Holy mackerel." Well, originally that was the end of the story, but I didn't like that because we wouldn't have had Josh Hoy here if that had been the end of the story. So the rest of it is they just got wet, the doctor came, everything's fine, and we have Josh and Gwen Hoy to celebrate with us. So they don't all work that way. 400, 400, 500. I feel like an auctioneer. 6, 1,000. Do you not hear the rules? 1,200, 1,500, 2,000, 1,500. Where are you from? Wow, welcome to America. Thanks for coming. Well, I want to introduce to you a couple of people who between them, and I'm not kidding, know everything there is to know about the Flint Hills. And I challenge you to ask them a question that they can answer. Knowing about and teaching about the Flint Hills is really their life's work. Brian Obermeyer is with us. Where's Brian? He's going to be speaking to us. For the past 100 years, Brian Obermeyer has been the director of the Nature Conservancy. Actually, I think he said 13 years he's been director. Of the Nature Conservancy's Flint Hills Initiative, a community-based effort to preserve the last landscape expression of tall grass prairie in North America. Brian's work with ranchers, landowners, and other stakeholders to help preserve the biological integrity of this unique region. Brian was nominated by the Kansas Wildlife Federation as the Wildlife Conservationist of the Year, and in 2005 he was recognized as an outstanding graduate of Emporia State University. That's Brian Obermeyer. Yeah, that's okay. Jim Hoy. Yes, they're related. Father and son. You can decide which is which. Jim Hoy is professor of English at Emporia State University. Reared on a stock ranch near Cassidy, just about, 20 miles south of here. He has lived in the Flint Hills area all his life. He's published over 100 articles, both scholarly and journalistic, and is the author or co-author of 9 books, including Flint Hills Cowboys, Tales of the Tall Grass Prairie, and others which you will find inside. His chief interest is the folk life of ranching, both historical and contemporary, in various parts of the world, with special emphasis on the Great Plains and particularly the Flint Hills of Kansas. As a folklorist and a native plainsman, Jim is committed to documenting and celebrating the lives of his fellow plainsfolk, seeking the extraordinary in the ordinary, while encouraging pride of region in those fortunate few who dwell in the Great Plains, and understanding of region in those who must live elsewhere. Director of the Center for Great Plains Studies, 2004 Kansas Cowboy Hall of Fame inductee, and according to his daughter-in-law, Gwen, the best bronc rider and roper in the Hoy family, Jim Hoy. Brian, come up and get us started.
I'll give a little bit of a taste of what this landscape really is about and why it's such a special place. It's the last landscape expression or the landscape scale of tallgrass prairie left in North America. at one time, this ecosystem, tallgrass prairie, was one of the largest ecosystems in North America, and today it is the most altered ecosystem in North America. Only about a little over 4% of the original tallgrass prairie remains, and most of that is in Kansas. Most of that is in the Flint Hills. There's also an extension of it in Oklahoma called the Osage Hills, but it's actually just the southern extension of the Flint Hills. So think about that. The most altered ecosystem in all of North America, and about two-thirds of it is in the Flint Hills. One of the reasons that it is still here is because of the limestone, and made plowing difficult here. And as a result, it wasn't conducive for tillage agriculture, and so what came into this area was a ranching culture. And there obviously was farming that took place down along the stream courses, and we're kind of down in the valley here. But you get up in the hills, and there was very little plowing. The other thing, and it's kind of why we're here tonight, that kept this area as tallgrass prairie, was the extensive use of fire by ranchers. And the fire was something that early academics really pushed against. They thought it was a bad practice, and only in the last maybe 40, 50 years have the academic community realized the ecological significance, importance of burning. And without burning, you'll go from an open prairie to a woodland. And in fact, in areas where you have a lot of trees in nearby, you can have a complete forestation in as little as 35 years without any burning. Now, out in these real big pastures, you get out in the Flint Hills and say you wouldn't burn for 35 years, it may not forest up because there's no trees nearby. But if you've got trees in the area, it'll forest up really quick. And one of the things we've noticed here in the Flint Hills is it's almost like exponential growth. As we have more trees that have come into the area, then you've got more seed source and more trees come in all the sooner. So fire is really important. Historically, the prairie, we think, burned about once every 3 to 5 years. And when you think about that, there's about historically 170 million acres of tallgrass prairie in North America. And so, maybe 35 million acres burned on average every year. That's a lot of fire. It's a lot of smoke. And, smoke has become a real issue for us here trying to do ecological burns because it's impacting metropolitan areas. And of course, historically, we didn't have a lot of people. We didn't have Kansas City. We didn't have Wichita. We didn't have those places. I was involved in a burn last weekend, and we threw a bunch of smoke up north, and we exceeded the particulate levels for Lincoln, Nebraska. They're not real happy with us right now. So it is a concern. We've really tried to make some efforts to burn when it has less impacts to metropolitan areas. But we've really been on a real education campaign to educate folks, including EPA, that burning is an ecological necessity. We have to burn this landscape or it will tree up. And this landscape is really important to protect because, it does throw out some smoke once a year, but it also sometimes referred to as the lungs of the nation. This grass is actually very healthy for our atmosphere. It sequesters carbon, CO2. So that's an important thing. So it's a really important ecological resource. It's also a really important ecological resource for a lot of wildlife. One of the species out here that we try to manage for is the greater prairie chicken, and we have to burn for the prairie chicken, but we try not to burn everything every year for the prairie chicken because they like to nest in tall grass. There are some species that actually seek out recently burned areas, and that's their habitat preference. And we have other species. One of them is the Henslow sparrow that they like it where it hadn't been burned for like 5 or even 10 years. They really like a lot of old residual grass. So we have we're trying to meet the needs of a lot of different species. Burning also is really important for livestock production, and I'll let Jim talk more about that. But I just wanted to touch on the fact that burning is an ecological necessity, and it's really important. So with that, I'll...
An oral history that was taken up near Council Grove. Someone recorded that oral history maybe 50 years ago. And that history tells how the Kansas Indians burned the prairie before white people ever came here. There is also a recent book out called Prairie Fire by a woman named Julie Courtwright that talks about how the natives burned throughout the Great Plains. But there's a lot in her book about the Flint Hills, because this is the last area where deliberate burning was taking place on a wide scale, and has continued to for ever since the 1840s and 50s. The oral history tells how in the spring of the year, about this time of year, the Kansas Indians would pull up bunches of dead grass, make a big ball of dead grass, kind of tie it together with rawhide string, and they'd set it afire, and an Indian man on a horse would take off dragging that burning ball of grass and set miles of prairie afire. It burned from stream to stream, from river to river. They did that for the same reason that white ranchers burn today. Clearing off that old dead grass makes the new growth come up quicker. The ash provides nutrients for the new grass. The bare ground lets that sun warm it quicker than it does if it's covered with a blanket of old grass. And the new grass that comes up is very palatable for the animals. If someone sets before you a plate of cauliflower or a piece of chocolate pie, which are you going to like better? The chocolate pie. For a cow, for a buffalo, for the Indians, that green grass was like chocolate pie. It was just wonderful, and they would go to it, and they would gain weight very quickly. They'd recover from the winter very quickly. I'm trying to think about when it was, 1950s, I believe. A rangeland scientist from New Mexico came to the faculty at Kansas State University. This man had this kind of heretical idea, belief, that fire was good for the prairie and it needed to be burned, but he couldn't do much advocating because New Mexico happened to be the home state of Smokey the Bear. You don't talk about fire back there. But he thought it was, so he came to Kansas State. Now, Brian alluded earlier to academics being opposed to burning pasture, and they were earlier on, but the experiments they ran to show how bad burning was didn't turn out quite right, because it didn't show bad effects, it showed good effects. This man came up to Kansas State, he began to run experiments, and it showed that fire was really beneficial to the health of the prairie. Not only that, but cattle placed on recently burned pasture, the growth, the amount of herbage grown on burned and unburned was roughly the same over the course of the summer season, but cattle would gain 10 to 15% more weight on a burned pasture than the other. Now you talk to a cattleman who maybe 1 or 2 percentage points can mean the difference between making money and losing money. 10 or 15% is a huge amount. And from very early on, cattlemen realized this is a good thing to do. A few years ago, I ran across a diary from 1863, a rancher here in Chase County, just about maybe 15 miles east of here. Kept a diary in 1863, and he recorded in that diary 3 burns. He kept it 1 year, 3 prairie burns. One was in March. It was an accidental burn. He described, talks about 2 fires they deliberately set in April for the purpose of what we're going to do today, clear this old grass off so the new grass will come and it'll be good. And so it's been going on a long time. That man had moved to Kansas from Illinois probably in about 1858. Undoubtedly he had been burning pasture, and his neighbors been burning pasture from the late 1850s. So from territorial days on, Kansas has been burning, particularly here in the Flint Hills. Agricultural burning was widespread throughout the country, particularly in the Great Plains region, but it's one thing that Aboriginal people did. Like in Australia, the Aborigines burned all the time down there. As soon as a white settlement came in, they stopped the burning. Aboriginal people in the Great Plains were burning constantly. When white people came in, they stopped it. Everywhere except in the Flint Hills. But there was a big move to stop it in the Flint Hills. There's a newspaper editorial from the 1870s in Butler County, just south of here, that where the editor rails against these people out there burning the pastures. He's blaming everything from grasshopper invasions to, I think, the heartbreak of psoriasis on burning pasture. And one thing he says, if they'd stopped the burning, they'd stop droughts, they'd stop the grasshopper invasions, they'd stop the trees from growing. Well, he was right on that. The burning does stop the trees from growing. And that's the good thing about it. He didn't quite realize it. Point is that the public was against it, and agricultural scientists were against it, but the county extension agent up here in Wabunsee County to the northeast of here, said, I couldn't help but notice that those ranchers who were burning pasture had better pasture, their pastures looked healthier, and their cattle looked better, gained more weight. So he said, I knew I was supposed to tell people not to burn. He says, I just kept quiet and let them burn. The county agent here in Lyon County, just the east of us, said, if back in the 1950s, if I'd seen you out burning pasture, I would have strung you up from an electric pole. Says, now I'm a great advocate for burning. The experiments of Flint and Owensby, this man kills the trees and everything. So fire is one of nature's great tools for keeping things natural. You remember maybe 10 or 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was, there was a fire, lightning or something started a fire in Yellowstone National Park, and they were going to let it burn. The Forest Service people were going to let it burn. There was such a public outcry. Congressman got in the act. Of course, well, I shouldn't make jokes about legislators in Congress, should I? But they made them stop the fire. The next year, they said the part that it burned looked like hell, literally. 2 years later, it was the most beautiful part of Yellowstone Park. So it's a very good thing. I also want to congratulate our state legislature, who yesterday voted against outlawing perpetual conservation easements. There was, for some reason, the legislature wanted to outlaw conservation easements in perpetuity. The point of a conservation easement is to keep the natural landscape natural forever. Josh and Gwen put a lot of their land in conservation easements. My wife and I put our smaller ranch at Cassidy in a conservation easement forever, in perpetuity. That means that my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren will be able to see what the Flint Hills looked like when my great-grandparents came here. If the proposed legislation would have said that conservation easement could last for a certain number of years or during the lifetime of the person who put it in an easement. What's the point of that? If you want it protected while you're alive, you can keep it protected. But if you want to protect it beyond your own lifetime, you need to have a conservation easement. I'm preaching here, but I hope not everyone is aware of this and not converted. If this thing comes up next year, get a hold of your legislators and say, for heaven's sakes, do not do away with conservation easements. They are a wonderful tool to protect the natural habitats of Kansas and the nation as far as that goes. Okay, the sermon's over. Does anyone have any questions before we get started here? Point is, what you're getting ready to do and see is something that's been happening for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands. The earliest settlers Indians came here maybe 10,000, 12,000 years ago, and they were burning, and that's what we're going to do today. So, Josh, any last minute instructions you want to give them?
No, I think everybody you got your matches, your rakes if you have them. We're just going to head out here, just follow me, and we'll head down and do our day burn.
Okay. Toasty.
Everyone I've talked about it, they kind of look at me though. Wow.
in the lobby of a big hotel in the old town one day. Sat a bunch of fellows telling yarns to pass the time away. They talked the places they had been and different things they'd seen. Some preferred Chicago town while others New Orleans. In a corner in an armchair sat a man whose hair was gray. He listened to them eagerly to what they had to say. They asked him where he'd like to be, this clear old voice and ring. I'd like to be in Texas when they round up in the spring. I can see the cattle grazing over the hills and early morn.